Okay, welcome all to the April meeting of the Monroe County Land Bank Corporation. On our agenda today, we will approve last month's meeting minutes. I don't know how much of an update, but we talk about the LBI award, and then we've got committee reports and policy discussion. We'll start with a roll call. Kevin Purcell, I'm chair, I'm here, and Alyssa.
President.
Amy Grande.
I'm here.
Orlando.
Here.
It's good to see you.
Likewise.
Deborah Campanella, good to
Yeah.
see you.
Thank you.
And then Jennifer Cesario is here. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay. Jennifer is joining us. Bob Franklin submitted a letter designating Jennifer to replace him on the land bank board. So we welcome Jennifer. We thank her for volunteering or something along those lines to be a part of our group. We
Thank you.
look forward to working with you. And then Thalia Wright, I believe, is going to be here, but she's running a few minutes late today. Okay, we'll start off with the approval of the March meeting minutes. Are there any corrections anyone has to the previous meeting minutes from the March 20th meeting? Seeing none, or hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes as distributed?
I will.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Both. Okay, great. We will move on to announcements and communication. And Pat, just to start off, I think you connected with the Urban League of Rochester
I
to
did.
discuss their youth build.
Yeah,
program.
so Kevin, as you know, we participated in the ARPA American Rescue Plan meeting that is voluntary for everyone who's receiving grant funds from that. And at that meeting, I gave a very brief elevator pitch about what a land bank does and what we will be doing. And Urban League of Rochester heard that and wanted to connect with us just to figure out what we're doing and see if there's any synergies there, because they have a couple programs that they think may or may not be beneficial. Which one of them that they brought up is their youth build program, where they get kids hands-on training for various things and certifications related to building and construction trades. They are working on City of Rochester land bank projects indirectly through an entity, not necessarily with the land bank per se. So I couldn't figure out exactly how that could work for us, but I told them that it's a little premature to, have a full conversation, but it's good to know, and that we would love to connect with them. And if possible, they can come and present to us and tell us about what they're doing, and we can make a connection to figure out if there's anything there that we can help with. As you know, the goals of the land bank are to renovate vacant houses, but it was a bit more than that in our goals in terms of helping people get trade skills and using resources in our community rather than reinventing the wheel. So just something to let you know about, and a connection that we've made and that we hope to continue to make and see if there's something that makes sense there.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Pat. Appreciate it. Next, the New York State Land Bank Association is hosting its annual conference, May 21st and 22nd in Oswego. I don't know if we have, here, I don't think we have more details on that.
I don't know. All I can say is I know the 21st is like a half day type situation, and the 22nd I think is like a typical workday session. We do have funds in our fund structure, our budget, to pay for trainings. So we could have someone go if we wanted to. How we access those funds is still an open question at this point, because we have not received our LBI funding and other things. So it may be a challenge to get someone there, but I wanted to make the board aware of it. If anyone's interested, reach out to me and we can figure out if there's a way to make that happen.
That's
Does
great.
that make sense?
Yep. We, last month, moving on to a new topic, last month we talked about our meetings and our committee meetings and whether or not they need to follow open meetings law and kind of what the standards were. And Josh has had some more conversations, and I think he's can give us a brief synopsis on where we landed.
So the biggest thing is we've been doing things right for the meeting, and remember that, everything's foilable. The committee meetings, though, they've been busy, I know, because of the policies and trying to do ad hoc meetings. But going forward, they need to comply with open meetings law as well, which means the majority of members need to be, or at least a quorum has to be in person. You can add other people to Zoom. They have to be broadcast. They have to be noticed. This shouldn't be as much of a problem as, I know you're all thinking, great, we're all have to get together at various times for all our committee meetings. But the committees will not be meeting that often going forward, and Pat and I think we should do what I think Comida does, what the airport authority does, which is if you're gonna have the committee meetings, you have the committee meeting at 3:30, and then you have the meeting at 4.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions or objections to that, but I guess going forward, we shouldn't have these kind of meetings where, they're not streamed or anything. If you're talking about ideas, but if you're actually calling it a committee meeting and then presenting to the entire board, we've got to comply with the open meetings law.
And I hate to put more on the planning team, but is that something that the planning team can assist with in terms of all of the mechanics to comply with open meetings law?
Yeah, so I mean.
For these, you guys do such an amazing job at this.
So we can follow the same practice that Comida does, which is they invite people to this space, have a committee meeting that is noticed and here, and so people who are physically present can participate. And then to Josh's point, if we have a third, since most of our committees are only 3 people who needs to be off-site, that could work. So we can provide Zoom, we can provide materials, we can do all those type of things. So it shouldn't be an issue. It may make your life slightly more inconvenient, but it shouldn't make Lisa or my life or Anna's life any more inconvenient.
All right. Any questions from anybody on the board on that? Okay, moving on, the LBI award updates, as Pat mentioned earlier, I don't think we really have much of a way in terms of new updates here.
No new updates. We are still waiting on our insurance quote. It's in process. We've checked on it. There's just due diligence that they're doing that is taking longer than I would have suspected. And so we're waiting on that. And then bank account, same thing. We are in process. We actually did get an email today about that. And I have to respond to that. But other than that, we're moving forward with those pieces. And so we haven't submitted anything yet. I have been in contact with New York State to let them know that we're still in process, we are still committed. It's just taking longer than we'd all like. It's unfortunate.
Well, I know we're doing everything we can, so. Thank you, Pat. Next up is our committee reports. And we've got some policies here, and we're trying to see if people are ready to, if the committees are ready to recommend the policies. So we'll start with finance, travel and discretionary funds policy. So, sorry, with your packet, you should have in here a clean, updated version of each of these policies. They were also circulated via email along with the meeting agenda. So wondering, I think we're in a position to move forward with it, but I want to check in to see if people have any feedback as based on what was circulated. Okay. Before we do our votes, I guess we'll move through to make sure our committee reports to see if we have any comments on the other ones. So next are governance reports, the code of ethics / conflict of interest policy. Any feedback and questions about that?
Not since we submitted our last changes.
Yeah. Wonderful. The defense and indemnification policy. Good, yep. And then the last is the internal control and finance, which I think that's the one that had some significant changes. And I don't know if people have questions. I know that the audit committee met and there was some significant feedback from them.
Yeah, we can share more if you want to do it later or do it now.
So why don't we do this? What for the, well.
Because that is
tell
our
me what-
report.
No, that's
Right,
whatever we want
right.
to go.
Yeah. Why don't we vote on the first 3, kind of knock those out, because I think those are all going to be relatively straightforward. For the travel and this is to approve the travel and discretionary funds. Can I have someone make a motion? Orlando, thank you. Thank you, Anna. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. For the Code of Ethics slash Conflict of Interest Policy, I have a motion to approve that. Anna? Debbie motion, seconded by Anna.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, anyone opposed? All right. The Defense and Indemnification Policy, can I have a motion to approve that policy? Thank you. Can I have someone second? Thank you, Debbie, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so those three are all approved, and that leaves us with this internal control and finance policy. And as I stated earlier, I know there was some pretty significant, the review was done by the audit committee, and there was some good feedback on here, so.
Certainly, yeah, we can run through
Yeah.
some of our comments.
Okay.
I'll give a high level broad brush synopsis and then Orlando and Debbie, you can share your feedback. We know, and I think Pat was able to resolve some of these questions in an updated and revised document. So I think we might be in a position to be able to vote on this today, but we'll open that up to discussion as well. So the audit committee met on Monday and we noted in item D, section 3D of the internal control and finance policy, the first sentence contained redundancy in that the establishment of a system of internal control, we believe, is addressed throughout the internal control policy itself. Regarding the establishment of a clear and concise statement of related to internal controls, we recommended instead a provision that would require the audit committee to ensure that each member of the board and staff receives a copy of the internal control policy and acknowledges receipt via signature. Because, and we also noted that once all of our policies are finalized and approved, that process could be applied broadly. And then finally, regarding education and training, we suggested modifying the language to state that the audit committee shall ensure all members, officers, and employees complete required ABO training rather than providing that the audit committee should develop a training program in general, because we were unclear about what type of training that would actually entail. Does that go beyond the authority budget office standard training? And those thoughts and suggestions and edits are reflected here in the comments that you'll see in your copy. And with that, would love to get your thoughts, Orlando.
Yeah. So in terms of the sign off, I'm sure besides this policy, there's gonna be other ones that we have to like acknowledge that we've read them. So we thought was like just having one page where you sign off and, you know, kind of check all the ones that you received yearly, or however the frequency should be, instead of like signing every single policy. So that way I thought that would be more efficient, not only for us, but also for record keeping as well. And then the other thing was about the dollar amount that for the checks, increasing that to 5,000
Yes.
from 1,000. We thought
Thank you.
1,000 was just too low and just created
Sure.
more nuances, you know, for invoices and into that.
Question, on your change to D1. This is for Pat now, and for whoever the employee is, go all the way down. The second sentence, how easy is it for you, whoever has access to Pacer or whatever, to know which board members have completed various trainings? Because you're making the land bank take on that responsibility of checking to see if everyone's actually done their training. Is that something that you can see?
So that is required of an entity that is in Paris. So we required to upload that information either way, so we'll have to.
So you'll see it, so that's not an addition, I just want to make that an additional load.
No.
And I think that was the key change is we don't want to develop, like, as Anna mentioned, we don't want to develop the training. If
Yeah.
there's other stuff that, you know, we can just kind of tag along
Makes sense.
that are required.
And through Comida and MCIDC, we have our board members participate in that training when they are newly onboarded. There's no requirement that they receive ongoing annual training unless they seek it out themselves. So we can share some of that institutional knowledge with the land bank.
I think we've covered that in here too. Pat, you did this, but I don't know if you did this, but.
Yep.
That you captured exactly what we wanted in the revision. And basically, if there is additional training, we'll make sure that it's handled.
Yep. Great.
Thank you to the audit committee for all your work on this. Any questions from anyone else on this or discussion? Personally, think we'd be ready to vote on it, but I certainly want to open that up to other board members. If others have questions, they want to review it further. Hearing no objection, do we have a motion to approve the new draft of the internal control and finance policy? Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Anna. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, clean sweep.
One thing that I know, Anna had pointed out during our meeting is the city of Rochester's land bank. I mean, they have all their policies and procedures on there, so in case we ever wanna benchmark anything else then locally,
Yep.
they have their stuff right on there, so that was really good to kind of just double check with what they do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Thank you for pointing that out. I've looked at a lot of the other county ones, but I never thought to look at the one that was right in our backyard. So that is actually very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, they have a wealth of information
Yeah.
up on their website.
Yeah.
It's useful.
Okay, other business. I'll leave Amy has some brief updates on a property in Greece or.
Before you jump into this fun topic, can I just get, there's still, to Orlando's point, we do have more policies that we need to work on in the
Yep.
top. I made a mistake in the last emails. I should have sent whistleblowers to audit committee as well. So I will make sure I do that for the coming meeting. That particular issue was that there's a reference to an investigation policy in the whistleblowers policy. I believe Chairman Purcell said, what is the policy? Let's figure out what the investigation procedure is. I started to get that moving forward and then got distracted by other policies clearly. So I will make sure that I get that out for the audit committee for next time. And then we still have policies that we should at least start thinking about. To Josh's point, the procurement policy, something that we ideally will be able to start procuring things and doing things shortly. So we should continue moving forward with that. And then a policy of probably even bigger questions and implications is our acquisition disposition policy. I don't think we'll be able to get that done in a month, but I think we should at least start talking about it. So I will follow up with an email to everyone with these policies, which ones we should specifically address, and then what we should start thinking about as we move forward.
Will you be putting like at least a tentative like committee that they would fall under, or is it a general board?
So whistleblowers was audit based on our prior
No, the other
conversation.
ones.
Procurement, I believe, was finance.
Yes.
Okay,
And then acquisition disposition, I believe we had it under governance, but we also said that's kind of really capable or something that everyone is gonna wanna weigh in on. So I think that's probably something that the whole board should consider.
Mhm.
So I will send those emails to the entire board, but I'll make clear which committee should be looking at which. And then we'll work with you to set up those meetings to follow open meetings law. Does that work for all board members?
absolutely.
Thank
you so much.
No, thank you. Those are, I forgot the fact that we don't have all of our policies in place just yet. And speaking about acquisitions and what we're going to be doing long-term, now I will turn to Amy with a little update from the town of Greece.
I was contacted by the town of Greece relative to 16 Swansea Park in the town of Greece, obviously. There is a house that is located in that neighborhood that has fallen into disrepair, and they wanted to know if we were interested in that. And I don't think that it was specific to the land bank. They were talking to me as a county employee, but also to me as a land bank employee, or not employee, but board member. And so I was putting together some information relative to that, and maybe this is a great way for us to start talking about acquisitions and reviewing what our mission statement is. The property over at Swansea is a, do you think that you could, yeah, it's all over it. It's not that.
I looked up,
I'd
I'm like,
rather
wow,
say
that's
it's
like possible.
not that.
You're good, I'm just playing with screens, apologies.
It's okay.
There you go.
It's not that either, though.
It is, it's just, we gotta zoom in.
Oh, it's over there. I see it now.
The one on the back.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so this is what they were contacting me about. Now, what I need you to pay attention to in the very first instance is that 200-year-old tree right in the front yard there. I would like you to also see there's another one in the front yard over there. So those are barriers to success in terms of any construction and or if we were to put some sort of modular housing on that site. The street is fairly narrow, and so there's that. If we were to consider renovating the home, that garage that you're seeing is now gone. They had to demolish it because it was hazardous. So we now have an exterior wall that's open to the elements together with a tarped roof in disrepair, I'm gonna call it, so that now elements are able to get inside the building. And I'm fairly certain I observed a hole in the floor.
Mm.
So I think perhaps it might be cost prohibitive for us to be able to move forward with some sort of renovation on this property. I think that the trees preclude this from being a good candidate for us to be able to put some sort of modular housing in there that's pre-assembled, although I did do some research. And so I'm presenting this to the board because what information I know, what I look at in terms of considerations, I would look at the property address. I would look at the zoning. I would look at the lot, the width of the lot, the size of the lot. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath bungalow. So then I would also say, all right, in what instance are we serving? We're serving a very small family that's not growing. So what, as a board, would we want to be considering when we're working through that? And do you want me to build that into a presentation to the board? Or do you think you have enough information to make a general decision of which way you would want to go?
Wonder why they didn't take the building down.
Cost prohibitive. And I think that's one of the reasons why the town was reaching out, that it's going to be a cost if they're demoing it. They're making sure no one else has a reason to want it before any of those costs are incurred. And I applaud that, frankly. Oh, that's the picture I took the other day. There's also a big fancy truck in there.
Is that part of the property or?
It's gotta get moved. I think it might already have been moved.
That seems to sweeten the deal for me.
Yeah, it does. And it's got some new parts on it, which makes it even better.
Is it just me, or is it just awkward, like the way it sits back?
It is.
It is.
They share a driveway, like I would have.
Well, the driveway is extremely narrow, and to
The
your
lot is
point,
just very narrow. Is
the
it?
lot is very, I think
narrow?
it's 40 feet.
Yeah.
The lot itself, I don't have my cheaters on, but I think the lot was 40 feet by 125. Okay, so now take that into consideration with the 2 trees, and the staging is difficult at best. Oh, you got all the pictures I sent you. Look at you. Oh, great. So typically, when someone brings something to the board, in my mind, I would identify the property, the SBL, the town, the zoning requirements. What are the setbacks? What are the permitted uses? I've got all of that prepared. I have an aerial so you can get a flavor of the neighborhood. And the nearby sales, I have them. So that you can get a general idea of what a sale would look like. Oh, look, 40, it is 40. There's the tax map. So I've got the measurements with the setbacks. And then I actually also went online and took a look at the various, types of buildings that would fit there that were pre-made and the width of them, just to see if it was even feasible. But then when you consider how narrow the lot is, how small the street is, and the trees that are in the way, I don't know that that's feasible. I don't know that that's physically possible, let alone financially feasible. So I'm doing my own highest and best use analysis in my mind. What is it that you think I could improve on? How could I help the board better? Let's start with that.
Taking it a couple of steps back, so just to clarify, this is a foreclosure.
Yes,
It
it's
has
in tax
been-
foreclosure now.
Okay.
It's in REM. It's been through two.
And then the Tyler versus Hennepin,
That's why I said it's
Issue.
been through two.
oh, okay. So it is at that
Yeah, that's.
phase
the-
where it is appropriate or would be appropriate for a land bank to
Yep.
take
Consider.
acquisition.
Yes,
Okay. Those were the only questions that I had. And then we would have, how does that work? Do dollars have to exchange hands, or we just, as of right?
right now, nothing has happened. It's not in the county's name. It's gonna go into another foreclosure
Mhm.
cycle. No one has taken it. It's still in the prior owner's name.
Okay,
Okay, so nothing there has happened. In order for it to happen, we would be able to either bid on it at the next auction, or the county would take it, or something along that line. But I think we need to review, what is it that we want to do? Is our position, we would like to take it, not this, any of them, and do a sale to an adjoiner? Like, if it's a vacant lot, a sale to an adjoiner. Does this meet that criteria? If we want to renovate it, does this meet that criteria? I would offer, I don't believe so. I don't believe, do we want to put modular homes up or involve trades? I don't know that this is a good fit for either of those either, due to the condition and the size of the lot. Is there anything else that you feel that I should be reviewing? I also have sales. I'll be honest, I stole them from an online resource that was very easy for me to do in 20 seconds or less, but would you like to review it? Would you like to say, no, not right now, but maybe in the future? What would you think?
Oh, I mean, for me, it would be, even if it's a no, I think it's a good exercise to go through it.
I agree.
Because otherwise, we might get a good one and we're like, well, we gotta think about what we wanna
Yeah.
do.
Right, so this is very fortunate
Yep.
that this happened, because now we want to talk about the procedures and
Right.
what our goals are, and this is our starting point.
Yep.
Mhm.
This is the information that we were presented with. This is what we could put together. I could forward it to the board. Did I forward it to you?
You wrote it to me, yeah.
Do you want it? Do you want to provide feedback of what else you think would be helpful?
I certainly would love to have a copy of it, and I don't know if this would make sense, but take a little time to see what you've got and then maybe think for a minute about,
Oh,
is there anything else
absolutely.
that would make sense? My guess is most of the categories to be looking at, but there may be others.
No,
some
but
other
and that's
folks in
where I
here
don't
that-
want to go wrong. I'm
Yep.
an appraiser.
Yep, I was
I'm
gonna
not a
say, you got
realtor.
different,
I'm not- like,
different
I know
backgrounds
where
here,
I-
so.
Exactly.
You've
I
got
want to
different
tap the
straight,
resources.
different, things that other people might think are important that you might not
Yes.
think of necessarily, yeah.
Yes,
I think as a starting point, it might make sense to circulate to everybody and everybody take a look and see, are there things we want to add for future properties, right? Not necessarily for this one.
well, and review this in concurrence with
The acquisition.
the acquisition
Yep,
yeah.
procedure
Of course,
and
Question,
disposition procedure.
yeah.
you seem to suggest that the town would do some demo if they knew it was gonna be you. Did I mishear you?
I don't
No, I
think any,
understand. I didn't think they
anything
would,
has been
that's why-
ruled out. I don't
If
think
it was
anything has been ruled
dangerous.
out. They're considering the demolition of it because it's becoming a safety hazard.
Which does impact our cost. If someone else is demoing it and we don't have to, that does
Right,
impact.
that'd be an open question is, right, the timing of such, could we allow them to pay for the demo and then we step in and go, oh, now we want it, I don't know. If that's
And what
possible or
are the
not.
optics on that?
Yeah, right.
And then the other thing that we might want to consider being mindful of is those trees and where they're hanging over homes. There's risk associated with older trees falling on homes and any potential insurance claims that we may end up with. So those are the things that I will typically look at. We
Risk.
may want to consider those same parameters.
Mhm.
Or we have somebody on contract that can mitigate that risk.
Yeah.
But it should be considered.
That one tree is, isn't it in the right of way? It's
Yes.
between the sidewalk and the road.
It
So
is, as a matter
maybe
of
the
fact,
town needs to handle that.
I've heard that the town, put the sidewalk in and was mindful of preservation of the tree, as a matter of
I
fact.
wasn't thinking preservation.
They were.
I mean, there's two driveways there, right? There's not really like a,
That other one is for the yellow house next door.
no, I know, but the trees, like, the two driveways surround the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. That's
The
weird.
plow truck, can you imagine?
Yeah.
You don't want us to, anyone to cut the tree down?
I think that would be a headline.
Yeah, I mean, look, 'cause if you look, go back, there's a bunch of trees that are in that, kind of right, like the whole street
whole
has
street
those
As the
trees.
tree, yeah,
But it does look like that tree will hurt the driveway.
Oh, for
Right.
sure.
and
It's
the
gonna
sidewalk.
lift it, yeah.
Um,
Very lovely neighbors, by the way.
So I also did a drive-by just to see what it was like, and, I mean, the picture that you saw just is exactly what it looks like. I think everything Amy said is correct. It is a challenge. I think it is a good process to go through. The acquisition policy has different categories of what is the purpose of this acquisition. So this is really helpful because this might fit one of those purposes, or maybe it doesn't. But I think at least gives us some concrete examples to play with in our minds. And I think that as we move forward, there might be others that make sense. So at a very minimum, I think you should think about this property in light of the acquisition policy as we move forward. And then, Anna, you asked, like, how does this, if we were to want a property, how does it actually come to the land bank?
Right.
So a couple things. One, we don't technically have a policy or agreement with the county as to how that process happens. Some land banks do. And so we can figure out what that may or may not look like. They don't necessarily need to have that, but they can. In typical land bank foreclosing governmental unit processes, the land bank makes clear that they want a certain property to the foreclosing governmental unit. The foreclosing governmental unit will then agree or not agree to having that property transferred to the land bank. And then much like Amy does with all the other property transfers that happen during the foreclosure auction, that would be included in the referral and be deeded over to the land bank. In terms of remuneration, all that stuff, negotiation, figure out if there's a need to provide anything to anyone. So there's, you know, essentially a typical property transaction, that needs to follow and would happen. But the compensation can be decided and it can be as little as essentially nothing because they can donate per the Article 16. So there's work to be done there, but it's a typical process that Amy and legal and everyone else would go through.
Got it.
So there's a lot of open questions and Jennifer can probably help us with some of those as well. And Amy can help us with some of those.
Welcome aboard.
If we, like I said, we can look at, and we're not there yet, but often land banks and counties or the foreclosure governmental unit have agreements in place as to, do we automatically get properties? Do we get, you know, first look at properties? You know, whatever it may be, that's something that we can figure out. I should say, figure out with the county.
The other thing that I wonder about, we were talking before the meeting about how much the market has changed over the last 10 years. When the land bank was first talked about
Mhm.
and when many of the state land banks were formed, you had a glut of abandoned properties and vacant properties. Now with the housing market as it is, and I think what we've seen so far in terms of how many properties make it through 2 auctions, it's a pretty limited
It's
subset.
it's extremely
Right.
limited.
So, while I don't think this is ideal, I just wonder, how are we going to get, how many ideal ones are we going to
Right.
get, right?
And on that point, the key to remember is that the ARPA portion of the funds have to be spent by the end of 2026, so
Very
we can't just set up and wait for the next recession.
Yep.
You know,
You're
like by 2027, you know, whenever, you know, the next
Mhm.
economic market turn.
I have faith in
I think for those reasons, but that adds to this being a compelling opportunity
Value
for us.
going through the
Yeah,
process,
yeah.
yeah.
And I think the other thing is, to Josh's point, we do have a certain time frame with the ARPA dollars. Maybe in a year from now, we have a different outlook on this property because of that, as we have money still to spend, and maybe there is a need to do something at that point or a desire to do so. Whereas now, maybe it doesn't make a lot of financial sense.
We also don't have a bank account yet.
Or insurance.
Yeah.
Get a little too big for ourselves, right?
Just curious, when you were driving down that street, is that the only house that you saw that is so set back like that compared to the others?
Pretty much.
Trying to figure out the kind of the history of how it ended up where it did.
Right.
It's just a strange,
Yeah,
it was very awkward.
Is that the current setback requirements there?
No,
No.
no, no, and
So
they're
that's
right
why it
here,
has
I
to
don't
be
have them
repaired.
memorized, I wanna say
Yeah.
R1E. Minimum setback, principal building, neighborhood average,
Yeah, so it would be,
that's not it.
and this yellow house is roughly the neighborhood average.
Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking, if that building is demolished, then you have to
Yep.
comply with the current
you
setback,
have-
so that's a problem.
Yeah, because,
But if,
yeah,
although, to be fair, if the town wants us to take it, they might. A condition on taking it might be granting us a variance.
Yeah,
But I mean, to your point, if it's demolished, we could move the structure forward and build at the traditional, what is now required. As
Not with that tree though.
that's true,
Right.
but that tree is gonna prevent a lot of, opportunities in either event. The other thing, so Amy selected several modular houses that in theory could fit the site based on width and such. Most modular houses that I am familiar with, generally the blank is where the front door is, and none of them would fit in this space.
that's right.
Yeah.
So we'd have to find very particular type of unit to go there,
Yeah.
where the entrance would have to be on the narrow portion
Yeah.
of the modular home.
Yeah.
It probably exists, but not in easy research.
So better to repair the existing, and who knows what's involved with that home. Yeah,
that's
but I mean, realistically, it's.
I mean, I think there's a lot of open questions that we need to answer before we were to commit. There's a risk assessment that needs to be conducted, there's a cost analysis
Yeah.
that needs to be conducted. So I think we can share what Amy has provided, which is a lot of information, actually. She says that she wants more input, but I'm not sure what more information she could provide, to be honest. She did a great job. And then from there, we can have a discussion about it. I don't think anyone's in a hurry to acquire this property.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
for- And I apologize, you might have said this, did the town indicate what their plan was if the land bank doesn't, I mean,
No, I told them I would present it to people, for consideration and that we would have a follow-up conversation, so. And this just happened last week, I wanna say it was last week, so that was a very fortunate timing.
Yeah.
And I'll follow up with them in a week or so.
They're being creative.
Yeah. And
And
we
good for
want,
them, yeah,
we want to partner with communities, so
Yeah.
that's great.
these are the kind of opportunities we're looking for, right? Whether or not this particular one is one that works out, but.
right.
All right, fantastic. Any other topics that, I don't have anything else on our agenda, Pat, anything that you've hit that I missed?
No, like I said, I'll send out homework for next meeting, but that's about it.
Okay, anybody else have any other topics that they want to talk about? Okay, in that case, our next scheduled meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, May 14th at 4 PM, right back in the same location.
Sure.
With that, can I have a motion to adjourn? So Orlando, Debbie seconds, everybody in favor?